What's going on, everybody? American Football Network here today, and today we're bringing you our 2023 Auburn football preview and prediction video. But before we get started, make sure you guys like and subscribe. Comment your thoughts and opinions down below. Check out the description for the link to our podcast website and our college football roundup channel. I'll leave a card for that right here. I co-host that channel with the football expert. Also, make sure you check him out. And then check out some of our other friends that we've put down in the description and a few of our other channels as well. And yeah, help me reach that goal of 875 subscribers by the end of June. We are 24 away. But let's go ahead and get started with today's video. So today, like I mentioned, we're doing the Auburn Tigers. So first up on their schedule for the season, they start off with a game at home against UMass. I think this is going to be a pretty easy win. I think it could take the offense for Auburn a little while to get going, as they bring in a lot of transfers. They only return 3 starters on offense. But yeah, bring in a lot of transfers, especially on that offensive line, with Dylan Wade, Avery Jones, and Gunnar Britton transferring in. Gunnar Britton, the right tackle, Avery Jones, the center, and Dylan Wade, the left tackle. So they bring a lot of the transfers in. They do return Jarquez Hunter, who has a career 6.5 yards per carry. And they get a 6'4" tight end transfer, Rivaldo Fairweather from FIU, and the 6'6" receiver, Nick Mardner from Cincinnati, at receiver, also transferred in. So they have a lot of length. The biggest question for them is the quarterback and what happens there. It was originally between Robbie Ashford and TJ Finley, but Peyton Thorne has since transferred into the program, and he's most likely going to be the starting quarterback. The question is these guys going to have long enough to really, work out some of the stuff some of the problems that they're going to have, work through some of the chemistry stuff, and are they going to be ready to go? I don't think UMass is good enough to beat them, but we could see the offense come out slow in this one. But I think Auburn gets the win here, and I think it'll end up being a pretty easy win. I don't think there's much discussion on this game. So then the next game, they go on the road to Cal. I think they win this game. One of the things to watch for this one is what does the defense look like under Ron Roberts, who spent, his last 3 years at Baylor. Can he turn this defense around? They were awful last year. They allowed the 3rd most points in program history at 29.5 per game. That was 98th in the country. And they gave up 40 points in a game 5 times last year and gave up 39 one time. They also gave up 39 to Miss State. So yeah, they've just been terrible on defense this past season and really bad on most stuff. But they do return 8 starters, and they have a lot of experience there. The 4 guys that aren't returning: Justin Rogers is a junior, Eli McAllister is a senior, Austin Keys is a junior, and Jalen Simpson is a senior. So even though these guys aren't returning, they're still very experienced, been in the program a while. So I think the defense, especially by the time you hit that bye week, will be good. But I think that Auburn is better than Cal, and I think they'll get the win here pretty easily, despite having to go on the road. I think in the end they win by 10 to 17 points. And so nice little start for Hugh Freeze. And I think that in week 3 it'll continue, as I think that Samford, especially you SEC fans, because a lot of SEC schools play Samford a lot, with Georgia and Auburn and Alabama. A lot of those teams constantly playing them. And this game doesn't need much discussion. They're not a very good team. Auburn's much better than them, and I think Auburn wins this game by 20-plus points. I don't think it'll really be any question for that. So yeah, nice start for Hugh Freeze. They start out 3-0. Then they go on the road to Texas A&M, and this is where I think they get their first loss. I think they definitely could win this game, but with it being on the road at Texas A&M, and I expect A&M to be better, which, by the way, Auburn did beat A&M 13-10 last year. But I do expect A&M to be a lot better than they were last year. I think that they'll at the very least, make a bowl game. And so I think that A&M week 4, before Auburn's kind of worked out some of their new pieces. I know A&M's got some too, but it's at home for A&M, and I think A&M's going to be a little bit better in that game. And I think that Auburn will get the loss. I think Connor Weigman at quarterback for A&M's probably just going to be too much for him to handle defensively. But then week 4, week 5, you get Georgia, and I think you lose this game. I think this game doesn't need much discussion either. Excuse me, but a Carson Beck at quarterback could be a little bit of a question on what exactly he is. By the way, check out my 2023 SEC QB rankings. I'll put those right here, a card for that. But yeah, just who knows what he's going to end up being. But I still think at the end of the day, even if he's not very good, Georgia has so much talent on both sides of the ball that they're still going to be a much better team than Auburn will, even in Auburn. So I just don't see any way possible for Auburn to win this game against Georgia. I think it's a guaranteed loss. I think Georgia, probably will go 12-0 again. And I think Auburn will lose to them. And then they get a bye week before a huge game to go on the road to LSU. But I do think they lose this game. I just think LSU, they're going to have a much better quarterback in Jaden Daniels. It's in Baton Rouge. It's going to be a tough environment to play, especially if it ends up being, like that 7:00 slot on ESPN or something like that. It's going to be even at a noon game, which would be, I think, 11 their time. They're still going to be crazy in a tough environment. And so I think LSU is just a much better team than Auburn. They're light years ahead of them as of right now. I do like Hugh Freeze, and I do think he is the guy to get Auburn back on track. But at year 1, you're not going to beat teams like Georgia and LSU. You're just not. LSU, much better team under Brian Kelly, a lot more talent on both sides of the football. Jaden Daniels, like I mentioned, will be the best quarterback at the most. And so LSU will have the best player at pretty much every position. So I think they just dominate Auburn talent-wise, and I think that they win the game pretty big. Then they get Ole Miss, and I think this is a loss. I think there can be some points put up in this game. Last year, Auburn lost at Ole Miss 48-34. I expect a similar outcome in this game, with Ole Miss having an elite offense. It's been top 10 like the last 3 or 4 years. So with that elite offense, though, they also bring in a below average defense, but they're getting better at this point in the season with some of the transfers they got. They could be an average defense, but in this shootout, I think Auburn's defense is worse, and I think that Ole Miss will be able to get a few more stops, and I think that Ole Miss's offense is just a lot better than Auburn's offense coming in. So I think Ole Miss will win this game, so another loss for Auburn. But, it's a game that Auburn could potentially win. They only lost by 2 touchdowns last year on the road. Maybe they come out on top in this game. Who knows? But I just don't see that. Very likely as a possibility. Then they get Mississippi State. I think this is a loss. We talked about Ole Miss's offense. I think Mississippi State's passing attack is even better, and their defense is also even better. Now, we'll have to see what Mississippi State is, because they're not going to be coached by Mike Leach this year, obviously. But we'll see what they look like. I'm pretty sure they hired from within his system or his staff. So, it's probably going to be very similar to what they had. Very similar offensive scheme to what they had under him. And either way, Will Rogers is arguably the best quarterback in the SEC this year. And I think Rogers is going to have a great season. And I think that Mississippi State is just going to be too much for Auburn. I think they're just a much better team. And I think Auburn will lose this game. Then they go on the road to Vandy. I think Auburn wins this game. I think they're better than Vanderbilt, but it's on the road, and Vanderbilt's not going to be a terrible team this year. I could see this as a loss for Auburn, but I don't think it will be. I think Auburn will get the win, but I could see it as a loss. I could see them losing this game depending on what Vanderbilt is, but I think more than likely Auburn will win by 10 points or more in this game. Especially at this point in the season, Auburn's gonna have kind of worked through some of the early problems that they had that they will have earlier on with team chemistry and stuff like that. But I think that they'll be more prepared by this point in the season and a lot better at this point in the season, especially just chemistry wise. So I think they get the win against Vanderbilt. Then they go on the road to Arkansas. I think this is a loss. This is the game I was at last year in Auburn, where Arkansas beat them 41-27. And I expect similar outcome here. I think Arkansas is a very good team, and I think that they're just their rushing attack alone could kill Auburn. And that defense is. I remember last year in the game, Rocket Sanders ran all over the Auburn defense. So I think Arkansas wins this game pretty big. I think that Auburn's going to be to the point in the season where they can kind of test teams for a little bit, but I just think Arkansas is too good in the trenches for Auburn to really withstand them and be able to compete for a win, especially in Fayetteville. So I think Arkansas gets the win. Next up is New Mexico State. I think this is a win for Auburn. Don't really need a lot of explanation on this one. They're just simply a lot better, especially talent-wise, and I think Auburn wins. So now the big one, the Iron Bowl. What happens here? We saw Auburn 2 years ago in this stadium almost pull an upset and beat Alabama before Bryce Young pulled out the heroics and took them 96 yards in like 40 seconds or something like that. It was wild. It was insane. And then they beat them in double overtime, I believe it was. So can Auburn get the win in this game? I think the answer is yes. I think they can win because it's a rivalry game, because they're going to be at home. The stadium's going to look like the one you see on the screen. It's going to be packed out. And at this point, they're going to have worked through all their problems from the beginning of the season. But here comes, the problem I see with Auburn in this game is Hugh Freeze is in year one at the school. They're relying on mostly transfers, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They're relying on mostly transfers. And to have mostly transfers all in year one under your program, not just a new coach, but a bunch of guys who haven't really played with each other. They're all new to the program, and a lot of them are from Group of Five schools. To have to face Alabama and those be your best players, and Hugh Freeze not have his own recruiting class in really where it's not his own players yet. He hasn't been able to recruit really for Auburn yet. And I think that's going to be the biggest difference is just the talent gap in this game. I think Alabama's talent gap is obviously way, way higher than Auburn is. I think that gap is huge between the two teams. And so that's why I'm giving Alabama the win in this game. I think Auburn will lose this game. Again, Alabama just has way too much for Auburn to handle. But like I said, it is a rivalry game, and it is in Jordan-Hare. I could easily see Auburn winning this game. Just with the rivalry game, going to be at home. We saw what they did 2 years, and they were worse 2 years ago. And Alabama 2 years ago, Alabama was a better team. Auburn was a worse team. Now you come in this year, I think Auburn is better. They're going to be better than they were last year also. And I think Alabama has a lot of question marks. Now, with this game being the last game of the season, they're going to have worked through all their stuff too. But in working through that, it could be they just have to deal with having a very mid quarterback because, honestly, between Ty Simpson and Tyler Buckner competing for the starter, Simpson's never proven anything. Buckner's never really been able to do anything either. He's played in a few games because he messed up his knee. I'm pretty sure it was torn ACL and missed like the entire season after the second game for Notre Dame. But he's been highly inconsistent, um, and so we'll see what happens here with them. I think it'll be interesting to watch. But I have Auburn going 5-7 overall, 1-7 in the SEC. Same record overall last year. They went 2-6 in the SEC last year. But I think that's a good start for Hugh Freeze year one. I mean, there's not a whole lot you can do, especially whenever it's your first cycle of recruiting. They're just getting some guys in. You're taking over a terrible team talent wise. So I think this will be a good solid start for Hugh Freeze. Auburn just needs to give him some time, and he'll bring them back. He will. He'll bring them back for sure. But that wraps up today's video. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Comment your thoughts and opinions down below. Help me reach 875 subscribers by the end of June. I appreciate all you guys watching. Let me know what you thought down in the comment section, and I'll